Hello, everyone, and welcome to our special celebration of International Literacy Day. Today, we'll be exploring a fundamental topic in education and communication, and that is the role of storytelling in literacy. I'm excited to have Patricia Furstenberg with us, an author of 16 books, including Silent Heroes and the bestseller Joyful Trouble. Patricia writes across various genres, including contemporary and historical fiction, children's literature, and she also maintains a blog. Join us as we discuss valuable insights, experiences, and practical strategies for teachers to foster engaging storytelling experiences that instill a lifelong passion for reading. Before we get the conversation started, we're going to start with an amazing icebreaker. And my question for you today, Patricia, is what song brings back your childhood memories?
Oh, um, okay. Now I have to think a little bit. Um,
Yeah.
ooh, you got me. It must be a Christmas
You're
carol.
allowed to think. You're
Yes,
allowed to
it
think.
is. It is a Romanian Christmas carol. Very simple about Santa Claus coming to town, but it's a Romanian version of Santa Claus, and he's got a white beard and he brings present. Very simple with a repeating verse, and but very cheerful. So that brings back memories because we
A
always
lot
had
of
a
fun.
white Christmas
Yeah.
in Romania. So that's something that I miss here
Nice.
all the time.
That's really, really amazing. And I like that you've already touched on a little bit of your upbringing by mentioning that you are from Romania. When did you come to South
Yes.
Africa? And how has your experience being in South Africa been? I think let's start with when did you come to South Africa?
Okay, I came to South Africa just over 23 years ago because I met my husband, and it was a wonderful experience. Um, uh, Also, something that I had to adapt to, and maybe that's why I tend to write about characters that have to adapt to new situations and learn to make new friends. So it's wonderful here. There are things that I obviously miss about Romania, but there are things that I love here, like the sun. You can't not love the sun 360 days in a year.
Definitely. The weather in South Africa is amazing. Well, besides the winter, of course.
Um,
How would you say your
yes.
upbringing in Romania influences your writing?
Well, my parents were big readers themselves, and they instilled a love of words and stories in me. We would go and watch theater plays for children, or I still remember every night at bedtime at 5 minutes to 8 p.m. There was a short radio story that I love to listen to. And also, the school would give us prescribed literature apart from the books I read for enjoyment. So for each story or book that we had to read over holiday for school, we had to write a short synopsis. And I think that also influenced my writing.
We'll just skip straight into like maybe perhaps taking me through your writing process. How do you come up with the idea for which book you're going to write, the story you're going to write, what it is about? So what is your process? I think from inception until, the final stage where now the book is ready to be published.
Well, it always starts with a kernel, with a small concept or a piece of a story I read or an object that I saw in a museum or I read about. That sparks my curiosity. And from there, I dive into research, explore the historical context, the cultural nuances of the story that I see evolving, and even the intricate details that come to life as I research. Then I go on outlining at least the major plot points, and I think of the major characters that I want to incorporate in the story, that I want to include. And I try to have an idea of how the story ends. That is pretty important for a character act, at least for my style of writing. Then I begin drafting and allow the characters and events to unfold naturally. And we just had the Olympics that we've watched recently. Like an athlete that has to train daily, I have to write. I make myself write daily. I blend meticulous research with the creative exploration, and that's how the story comes to life.
So when it comes to incorporating cultural context in your storytelling, would you say living in South Africa or your experience with living in South Africa has had any influence on that?
It did because I see culture as our ancestors, and you have to approach them with respect and a deep care. And I think it is essential being exposed to Romanian and the South African culture, that the cultural context is not just a backdrop, but it becomes almost like a character, a part of the narrative. It's not only the land and how the relief was or how the layout of the towns were 500 years ago, but it's about traditions and historical events that influence the characters. Also, the customs and the language and the societal norms of the time. Because cultural context means giving voice to the overlooked details and the forgotten figures, or the lesser known events, the unique traditions that might otherwise fade into obscurity.
So today we're talking about the role of storytelling in literacy, and this is influenced
Yes,
largely by what we're living in schools, more so as teachers, who I believe will
yes.
be listening to our conversation here today. Um, where we are having quite a challenge with our children who can read. However, they do not read for meaning, they do not read with understanding, or they do not comprehend what it is that they are reading. And so now, my question to you is, in your opinion, how would you say, or why is storytelling important in the context of literacy development for our young learners?
I think literacy begins with stories. The stories that we are being told by our parents or grandparents, the stories that we share with our peers, that we co create at school, and then the stories we tell ourselves or we share with others. So, storytelling is crucial in literacy and literacy education because it fosters a love for reading, starting with a small kernel like a story. And it further enhances comprehension by engaging the imagination. Because through storytelling, children connect emotionally with the characters and the plots, and that makes understanding a story easier and makes whole learning memorable and meaningful.
Maybe in just 3 points, how would you say
Yes.
that teachers can use storytelling to improve literacy development in their classrooms? Just in 3 points.
Okay, I think teachers can use visuals a lot more if it's possible because
Okay.
um, that will engage the children. It will engage the children on a visual and auditory level, and it will make the whole experience more exciting for them. Teachers can also include stories in teaching a different subject, for example, history or maths, by including a short background on, let's say, the Wright brothers. This will help the children grasp the whole idea of aerodynamics much easier and will make the learning experience more memorable. Engage the children in telling the story together, maybe creating a story together and having some very easy props so that the focus remains on the story and it doesn't move away to dress up and make up. That and just having a overall engaging and fun experience in storytelling, even reenacting the story that is being studied in class.
Yeah.
I think
Mm.
that will engage the children and will bring out the excitement, and that is what makes the whole concept more likable.
Look now, Patricia, we are living in the digital age. I really would like to, pick your brain and hear what you have to say. Are you more for our kids reading from their tablets, from their iPads, or do you believe in them having to hold a physical book at hand when they're reading? Do you think there are any real benefits to them actually having a hard copy book as opposed to having a digital copy?
I think there are pros and cons for each one, and maybe you should try and use
Yeah.
both of them because um, it, it is um, it is so handy having a digital copy of a book or studying material. But I think that there is also a digital distraction that a child, even as a grown up, we can't escape it. But it's more difficult for a
Yeah.
child to face the digital distraction between studying on a tablet and being bombarded with information on social media or on his phone. And this also leads to a shorter attention span actually than the whole experience of being immersed in a paperback book. That can't compare to a digital copy. But I think we should embrace both and just try to make the best of each situation and use them both because we are not escaping the digital world, and it's actually very helpful. Look at us right now. But having
Yes.
your own paperback and that smell of that smell of old paper, and
Yeah.
also paging back and forth between the story, especially on an intermediate phase level, I think nothing
Yeah.
compares to that. And even having a textbook where the child can page between the first chapter and the second chapter, it's so much easier, and I think so much more helpful than having an ebook that you have to flip between chapters. I've seen that with my children.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm not sure what your take would be on this one because I know you are an author. I'm not sure if you've ever actually been in a school, in a classroom, perhaps maybe to observe how teachers are doing it. But do you think there are any, changes that you might suggest for teachers today when they are teaching literacy or storytelling rather, and how it's being taught in the schools? Are there any thoughts around that? Is there anything that you can share with our teachers about changes you would like to see?
Um, I think that literacy should emphasize critical thinking and creativity much earlier on than it does. I think because we teach our children how to read, and then suddenly they have to read to learn. So they go from learning to read to reading to learn. I think they should go literacy should go beyond the basic reading and writing skills to take the time to include critical thinking and creative expression from an early age, and encourage students to analyze the text and ask the questions and create their own stories that will help them learn how to comprehend without knowing that they're actually learning how to comprehend, and maybe promote a love for reading. Um, but okay, this would have to come from kind of adapting the school curriculum and include stories from different cultures and maybe stories from all over the world that will help the children connect what they read to on very fast changing world and society. I think schools should foster a love of reading by offering students a choice in their reading materials and creating a rich and inviting reading environment and celebrating quality rather than quantity. For example, maybe connecting students with authors, or maybe having small theater companies that can come to school, and this way providing opportunity for book discussions and ignite a different passion for literature that comes from enjoyment and not only from having to learn.
I like how in your response to that you touched on how it's important for us to ignite the love of reading within our learners. I was going to ask you the question, how would you advocate for literacy going forward? But you've answered it in that question. And just to close off our conversation, what message do you have to whoever that is listening today with relation to International World Literacy Day?
Um, I think we, myself included, I think everybody making an effort to read more diverse stories and literature that will foster an understanding and an empathy, and the the whole meaning behind World Literacy Day should actually be focused on every day, the way we approach literature and education every day, by reading widely and being curious about other cultures, and discovering that actually the everyday problems are the same everywhere in the world, no matter the culture that we are reading about. So, and this is what brings us all together, struggling through the same everyday challenges, and standing up against the future, against an unknown future, facing the future by being deeply rooted in our cultural heritage and our past.
Thank you so much for joining me. We're going to close it off here. I hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much, Margaret.